morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the attention to this matter. I know folks have wanted to talk to Todd and Savannah, so they're here to do that. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell a few words. We'll take questions after.
How are you guys? Good. We woke up today and they were still at home. So it's honestly felt like such a dream to have them at home. And I'm just so grateful, obviously, to President Trump, the administration, Alice Johnson, just everyone within the pardons office. Alice obviously came on my podcast a year and a half ago, I think, before she ever even got the role. And what I respect about her is she's not in the art of giving favors. Neither is President Trump. And when she got the role, she looked into our case. They saw the injustices. The media loves to run with this $30 million scheme without doing the research to look into the documents. And there was no $30 million scheme. But I just appreciate the administration looking into it and seeing the faults within our case, the corruption, and just the weaponization of the DOJ. So we are just so excited and moving forward. Obviously, getting them home the past 2.5 years, I have fought. Like, that was my number one priority, was getting my parents home. But now that they're home, now we move on to all the other men and women that are in the system and getting them home. And I know we're going to continue to work. We're going to be in D.C., and Mom and Dad are now along for the ride because we're not leaving those men and women behind. There's too much work that needs to be done. There's too much reform that needs to be done. So we're just super excited, and here he is, Todd Chrisley, after running from, the media in Nordstrom yesterday.
Good morning, guys. Thank you all very much for coming today, for having the interest. I want to thank first and foremost my Lord and Savior, because that's who got me through it. I want to thank President Trump. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank Alice Johnson. I want to thank every person that has prayed for us, that has stayed in the fight and that fought for the truth to come out. And so I am grateful for it. And as Savannah said, she has fought a long fight. And for any parent to see their child fight this hard, it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing, and then your heart breaks because your child has been placed in that position to fight for you, when as a parent you're supposed to fight for your children. So I will always be grateful to you from the bottom of my heart. We've had wonderful legal representation, maybe not in the first go-round, but certainly when you picked up. And we're certainly grateful to you, Alex, and to you. This is the better-looking version of our team. So, we're grateful for everything that has happened thus far, and as bad as this experience has been, there's also been a lot of blessings to come from it. I have met some wonderful men. I have listened to some horrific stories about things that have gone on in our system. And whether you believe it or not, because I was you at some point, even though this pardon has happened, I still was convicted of something that I did not do. It could be you. It could be you. It could be any of you. And somewhere in this room, someone has had a family member that has been affected by this system. So I understand the shame that's around it, but I refuse to feed into that, because shame is like a cancer that just spreads, and I have no shame. So I will continue to fight for all of the guys that I dealt with and that I was blessed to be with at FPC Pensacola. I will continue to expose the injustices that go on there and throughout the department and throughout the Bureau of Prisons. I know that Julie, who is a wonderful, decent, God-fearing woman, and that I am blessed to have been married to and been with for over 30 years now, an excellent mother. She's at home with Chloe right now, and Chloe will not let her go. So we're blessed to have our family back, and we're blessed to be coming back to television, because we do have a much bigger story to tell now than we ever have. So I thank each and every one of you.
We're happy to open this up for some questions. We'll start here.
Todd and Savannah, what was the reunion like first night, right? Todd, Julie, and family. And the second part of that is, Todd, the fans have been really talking about your physical transformation.
Yeah, I call it the VOP glow.
And so what was the motivation behind that, and how are you going to continue that sort of fitness routine moving forward?
Well, I'll actually have more access to better products now that I'm out. You know, I think that I had nothing to do other than to read and to work out. And so I worked out every morning at 10:45 until 12 with my buddies there, and I read, and my walk with Christ became deeper. And I talked to my daughter every day, to Chase, to Grayson, and then I was able to email with Julie every day. And so I think that for me, I haven't had the same effects that so many people leaving the prison system have had. So I'm grateful for that. Or maybe it's just all the residual Botox that never wore off.
What was the reunion like, the first night?
Yes, I think for me, obviously I went to pick up my dad. And when he walked out, it was just such an overwhelming feeling, because the last time I was there, I was dropping him off and watching him walk away. So I think watching him walk towards me, I was an absolute disaster. And we left there, and it was amazing. And I FaceTimed my friend Margot, who works within the administration, and she goes, "Hold on a second." She was like, "I'm here with the president." And we got to FaceTime the president, and it was a full circle moment.
I think that it was, you know, as Savannah said, she and Nick dropped me off there, and then you picked me up. I don't even know that I felt like that it was real at that moment. And I woke up the first morning, and I was looking around, I'm like, this is really real. I'm home. So I was grateful for our family to be all back in the same room, to be together, to share a meal together, to pray together, and to know that we're still in the fight together.
Question, second row. Mr. Chrisley, do you have any remorse for the actions that led to your evictions?
Oh, you must be CNN. Do I have any remorse? I would have remorse if it was something that I did.
Well, your wife did apologize last year.
Well, let me explain to you how that works, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You're placed in a position as a defendant to either bow down and kiss the ass of the Department of Justice and accept responsibility for things that you did not do in order to avoid a stronger sentence. And the corruption that went on in our case is going to continue to unfold, and Alex is going to continue to give each and every one of you the evidence that as it comes in. Next question.
You haven't seen your wife in so long. Hearing her voice, seeing her, what was that like?
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. Julie and I have been together for over 30 years, and she is my best friend. We have raised our children together, a grandchild that is now my legal daughter, and we've had all the ups and downs. You know, we've gone through breast cancer together. We've gone through multiple medical procedures with her, and it was great to be home. No matter where that is, as long as she's there, it's home.
Got a question up here?
Hey guys, welcome home, Todd.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. I know this has been a big journey for you and for you, Savannah. What is one thing that happened behind the scenes that maybe you want the public to know and to understand?
You want to go first?
I think, obviously the biggest misconception right now is that I either paid for a pardon or slept for a pardon.
That's something I would
like, that's the biggest misconception right now. And if people knew the countless hours and the money and the time that I spent going to D.C., literally with not a meeting scheduled, and I just got on a plane and went and said, I'm going to be in the right room at the right time and meet the right people. I fought hard and I was exhausted and I begged for meetings. There was nothing I was never too good to ask. And that's the thing is people think, oh, you're a celebrity, you're white, you have money, that we got an upper hand, and we didn't. I had to fight, and I was relentless, and that's how it happened. Finally, people listened. So for me, that would be something that people just don't quite understand.
I think for me, watching it all unfold and listening to what she said that was coming up next, and just being consumed with pride while at the same time knowing that this is a long shot because so many people are told no. And being in the prison system, anyone that says that it's a fair shake, it's not. Because I dealt with young African American males in the prison that I was in that were not treated the same. They were denied programming. They were denied access to certain things. I was not denied that, but we know why I wasn't denied that. And so I think that that is a much bigger picture that we all as a society as a whole need to look at, that we are one. And whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, at the end of the day, when you're in that hospital, you don't care if it's a Democrat treating you or a Republican. Now, some of you may, but I want whoever's going to be the best person to do that. You.
You're going to go here.
Thank you. So there's no telling how many times Savannah's Instagram was refreshed yesterday with everyone looking for that glimpse of getting to see Todd. And then the first time we see you live on Instagram is in Nordstrom shopping. Can you talk about that? And then were you hesitant at all for that to be the first glimpse of your shopping?
Well, we thought through our security detail that we had beaten that and that we were good to go. And what we did not realize is that there was multiple outlets that were following us, but we had interference with the security team. And I don't know why it's that exciting to go watch me buy underwear. I mean, it's just not. But we went in to grab a few things because I have an event to go to tomorrow. And then we look up and the people in Nordstrom's coming and saying, you need to understand that the press is here, the press is here. And so I'm like, they're just wanting this one first picture. And so I said, go live with it. And I says, and that stops them. And so that's what we did.
It did.
You
Hey.
go down to the front and to the back.
What do you have to say to the people who say you will only pardon because of your status?
I understand it. I understand it. That's not something that you can look at and say, well, that had nothing to do with it. I don't know if it did or if it didn't, because I wasn't involved in the process. But what I can tell you is that I believe in our President of the United States, and I believe in his commitment. When he created the First Step Act, that was to help incarcerated individuals. It was not adhered to by the Department of Justice. And the entire time during the Biden administration, it was not adhered to. So to hear him say that it is now going to be adhered to and Pam Bondi is going to make sure of that, literally since Pam Bondi has stepped in, now the Bureau of Prisons have been given a directive through a new director who I have such a huge amount of faith in, William Marshall, that he is going to make sure that the First Step Act is implemented, and these men and women are going to get the credit that they're supposed to be getting. They're going to get the training and the education that they're promised, and they're going to be given a right to go back to their families in a speedier way. So I do understand that, and if that's the case, I don't know how to address the fact that if it is the case, but I'm grateful to God for whatever reason it was that we were able to obtain it.
Far end first.
Hi. We know you've called the Nashville area home for a few years, having a woman frontline. What's your plans for potentially keeping life here in Nashville and the future?
We do have future plans. Nashville will always hold a very special place in our heart. But we have other plans.
Plan to stay here?
We will probably always have a presence here. I don't know that we'll be here full time.
Back row. Good.
No, you.
So after people have been incarcerated, a lot of times they say that isolation and that feeling almost of not being able to associate with family and friends is almost for them feeling like part of a death. And then having them come back is almost like a second chance. Now that you have all this new understanding and experiences, really having that conversation with people in very different ways of life, how do you plan to use your platform and to share different messages if you do, now that you're continuing to have this TV show?
This will always hold this. You can't go through what we've been through and walk away from it. I'm fortunate, so is Julie, that we never lost contact with our children. Julie and I emailed 10 times a day. And I think it's also important to understand that I was at a camp. It was the brokest child camp that you can go to. The accommodations were not great. But it, needless to say, was a camp. It was a former military base. So we had free access to walk, and we had a track and a weight pile, and we had things that we could do. But there are men there that after, I think statistically, after the first 2 years, people lose contact with their loved ones. And that I can't even imagine how that must feel. But at the same time, I think that we at this point, God has said, when you know better, you do better. And it's our job at this point to expose all of that and to try to make those men and women's lives better if we can. And that's what I plan to do.
So let's take a step back and take a look forward. First of all, what were both of your first reactions to the part where you were shocked? And looking forward, tell us, your return to television, this docuseries, can you tease what it will be like in nature, what the focus will be? Tell us about that.
I mean, when I got the call, like I said, I was walking into the grocery store and I stopped in the parking lot. I was like, what do I do? I was like, okay, go back to my car. And so I sat in my car and had that phone conversation that's online with President Trump. And I was in such shock. I really didn't know what to say. I started crying. Grayson was with me and we're like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. And I really don't even remember driving home. Like, I was in such shock. And I then was able to talk to my parents and tell them what had happened, but it had already kind of spread like wildfire because President Trump's team posted the video and tagged it Trump Knows Best, which, I loved. But it spread like wildfire. And when they called, they're like, is this really real? Oh my, it was so hard to believe that it was actually happening.
I had a staff member that came to me and said, you've just been pardoned. And I just looked at him and he says, no, really, you've been pardoned. It's in the news. And so I walked up to call her and she said, it's true, it's true. So I remember walking back from the phone and just feeling numb, not really knowing. And then after about 10 minutes, all I could think about was the guys that I was leaving behind because I had made such wonderful relationships with those men. And when I left that day, there was only 317 men at our camp, but they were lined up shouting when I was walking out. And they were saying, don't leave it, don't forget us, don't forget us. And my commitment is to them that I will never forget them.
Yeah. So we had been filming, and we had just wrapped filming for all intents and purposes. And then we get the call that they had been pardoned, so we picked right back up. And we're excited because I think this new show is going to give, first off, it's going to give people a look into the trial and things that we went through, and we're going to set the record straight, put some documents out there. Alex is on there. But it comes full circle because we go back and then we get to the point where mom and dad are pardoned, and now we move forward with our lives. And I know for me personally, now I get to be a normal 27-year-old, almost 28. And so my goal, it's like we were talking last night, it's like I'm traveling to 30 countries by the time I turn 30. But going to D.C. is going to be, I will be there a lot more because now I hope to work with the Federal Bureau of Prisons and Billy Marshall and help them expose the corruption because he has vowed to hold people accountable if there has been abuse and corruption to occur. So I am extremely excited for that, to work with some organizations, put bills in front of Congress, especially for women who are incarcerated. So that's kind of our goal. And then obviously they've already got all the offers rolling in, so it's going to make life so much easier. You'll see him on quite a few different shows, I have a feeling. So one more question, and then I think we're...
Can Todd confirm that you will be a part now of the second portion of the series?
We are.
Yep.
Yeah. We started filming literally the night that we got home.
As soon as we got home. So I think with this new series, you will see the first time he and mom see each other for the first time.
Last question.
Let her have this question.
So I understand you're saying you were wrongfully convicted and that information will come out. But my question is, so, it was under the first Trump administration when the investigation happened and the charges, so how can it be political?
Well, if you will look at the individuals that prosecuted this case and that lied to the courts, and these prosecutors are no longer with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Tommy Krepp left and is now at the FDIC. Annalise Peters, she is now with Meta. You don't go to Meta and give up a career as a prosecutor. That's not what you do. You don't go to the graveyard of the FDIC when you're trying to build a career as a defense attorney. So
I also think it's very important to note that it took 7 years to issue a formal indictment.
Exactly.
So the investigation was going on for almost a decade. And when you look at it, our judge was the youngest African-American female appointed by Obama. So she allowed so many things to come into trial with the Fourth Amendment violations, and magistrate judge ruled that all the evidence must be thrown out because it was obtained illegally. So we don't know if stuff was planted. Mark Braddock was involved. He got full immunity from the government. So the whole trial was just messy and tainted. And when the magistrate judge ruled the evidence was not allowed in, the Obama-appointed judge said, nope, I don't care. We're allowing it all in.
And with an email that said, we need to catch a big fish. And the response was, well, Todd Chrisley is the biggest fish in Atlanta right now.
And I think it's also important to note that the Office of Inspector General ruled in our favor in their documents, that in their investigation, that stated, we agree that the Chrisleys were unfairly targeted. We substantiate
Due to their celebrity status.
Yes, we substantiate the Chrisley's claims that they were unfairly targeted. So at the end of the day, I will sit and say, as his daughter, I believe in law and order. If I believe that my parents did exactly what they were accused of doing, then yes, you
have a consequence.
You have
for
a
that.
consequence for it. Do I think the consequence should have been 12 years? No, I do not. That's not even a fair sentence if it was true. But I know in my heart of hearts it was not true. I caught these prosecutors in so much misconduct, speaking to the judge, having ex parte communications. And
This is in writing. This
it is
hearsay.
in writing. Alex exposed the emails. So I think at the end of the day, if you want a conviction, then have a clean conviction.
And to go back to your question about it being a Trump administration, it was a Biden administration that the OIG issued the report under that said that we were targeted.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
That's it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank
Y'all have
you.
a wonderful day. God bless.
Thank you.